They never tell you this, but you can actually start over at any moment. Right now, in this breath. You don't need a new year. You don't need permission. You don't need to hit rock bottom first. And yet, most people wait. They wait for the dramatic collapse, the heartbreak, the big wake-up call that finally shakes the dust off their soul. But what if you didn't wait this time? What if starting over wasn't a failure, but a form of wisdom? Most of us carry around this silent pressure, that once we've chosen something, a career, a relationship, a version of ourselves, we're supposed to stick with it, even when it hurts, even when it's clearly not working, even when we've outgrown it completely. We fear being seen as inconsistent. We fear letting people down. We fear admitting, this isn't who I am anymore. But the truth is, people change. You change, and your life should be allowed to change with you. Imagine a tree being punished for shedding its leaves. Imagine a river being criticized for changing course. That's what it's like when you shame yourself for needing to begin again. No one tells you how natural it is to outgrow things, and how brave it is to walk away from something you've invested time in, just because your soul is quietly whispering, "We're not home here anymore." Have you ever stayed too long in something because you didn't want to disappoint the old version of you that chose it? Yeah, we all have. That's the thing about starting over. It's not dramatic. It's not loud or flashy. Sometimes, it's just a quiet moment when you finally stop lying to yourself. You realize, you've been pretending. You've been coping. You've been making it work because you thought you had to. But now you get to choose again. And it's terrifying, I know. Starting over doesn't always feel like a fresh canvas. Sometimes it feels like being lost in a fog, with no idea where you're headed next. But don't let that fog fool you. That confusion you feel, it's not weakness. It's not failure. It's the space between chapters. It's the sacred pause before a new sentence begins. If you're in that place right now, where nothing feels clear and you're questioning everything, breathe. You're not broken. You're in transition. And transitions are messy. They don't always come with a map, but they come with truth. And that truth is this. You don't have to keep living a life that no longer fits you. Let that land. You don't owe your past self a lifetime of loyalty. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to shift direction. You're allowed to say, that was right for me once, but it's not anymore. You're not quitting. You're not giving up. You're evolving. And evolution always looks like destruction at first. Things fall apart. You doubt yourself. People might not understand. But slowly, gently, something new takes shape. And that something new isn't a stranger. It's you. The you that's been waiting beneath the layers. The you that's been quietly asking, when do I get to breathe again? The answer is now. Right now. In this breath, you get to begin again. Not because you failed, but because you're ready. Ready to stop living by old rules. Ready to stop carrying what isn't yours. Ready to stop shrinking just to fit into places you've outgrown. And I know, there's still that voice in your head saying, but what if I start over and it doesn't work? What if I waste more time? What if people think I'm lost? Let me ask you this. What if you don't start over and you stay stuck in a life that slowly drains the light out of you? What if you keep going in a direction that was never yours to begin with? What if staying is the real risk? You see, it's not about throwing everything away. It's about being honest with yourself. And honesty will always cost you something, but it will never cost you your soul. You're allowed to outgrow people. You're allowed to outgrow dreams. You're allowed to outgrow identities you once fought so hard to protect. Because growth is not betrayal. It's birth. And you don't need anyone's permission to be reborn. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't making the change. It's forgiving yourself for waiting so long to make it. You replay every moment. Every red flag you ignored. Every time you said, it's fine. I can handle it. But that wasn't weakness. That was survival. You did what you knew how to do with what you had. And when you knew better, when your soul got louder than your fears, that's when something shifted. So please, don't shame the version of you that stayed. They were doing their best with a limited view. They couldn't see what you can see now. There's this myth that once you know better, you're supposed to be fearless, confident, decisive. But healing doesn't erase fear. Growth doesn't eliminate doubt. Sometimes you'll make the right choice and still cry about it. Sometimes you'll walk away from something unhealthy and miss it anyway. Sometimes starting over will feel more like grieving than beginning. That's normal. You're not wrong for feeling both pain and relief. You're not broken because some days you want to run back to what was familiar. It's part of the process. Real change, the kind that changes your life from the inside out, doesn't come with confetti. It comes with silence, with tears, with uncomfortable nights where you second-guess everything. But underneath that, something is settling. Something is becoming steady. And it's this: you can trust yourself again. You don't need someone else to approve. You don't need to prove anything to the past. You just need to take the next right step. That's it. Not the next 10 steps. Not the perfect plan. Just the next right step. So maybe that means writing a letter to yourself. Maybe that means cleaning your space. Maybe it means applying for something new. Or ending something quietly. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. In fact, most of the most life-altering decisions you'll ever make happen in silence, behind closed doors, when no one's watching. The day you choose to stop pretending. The day you choose to stop settling. The day you whisper to yourself, "I deserve more than this." That's the beginning. But here's the truth few people say out loud. You'll probably have to start over more than once. Not just once after heartbreak. Not just once after burnout. Not just once when you realize you've been walking someone else's path. Many times. Over and over. Because life is not linear. It's layered. You peel back one part of yourself and discover another part you hadn't healed yet. You change cities. Then you realize you also need to change your habits. You let go of a relationship. Then you see the beliefs that kept you clinging. You shift careers. Then you meet the fear of being seen in a new way. Starting over isn't a one-time event. It's a practice. It's a mindset. The mindset that says, "I'm not afraid to choose again." And listen, I know you're tired. Starting over is exhausting. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But it's also holy. Because every time you begin again, you're rewriting the story. You're refusing to live a life scripted by fear. You're taking the pen back into your own hands. And that's the most sacred kind of rebellion there is. To say, "I refuse to settle, even if I don't know what's next." That's courage. And courage doesn't mean you're fearless. It means you show up even when you're afraid, especially when you're afraid. So if you're in the middle of that fear, if your voice shakes when you speak your truth, if your hands tremble as you take the first step, you're doing it right. This isn't about becoming some perfect version of yourself. It's about returning to who you really were before fear got loud. And maybe you've forgotten what that feels like. Maybe life has buried that part of you under responsibility, expectation, and pain. But that part is still there. The part of you that dreams. The part of you that wants more. The part of you that believes, even now, that you were made for something meaningful. You're not too much. You're not too late. And you're not done. You're just shedding what no longer fits. And yes, it's scary. But so is staying in something that slowly kills your spirit. So here's your reminder. As you stand on the edge of that unknown, you are allowed to start over. As many times as you need. Without guilt. Without shame. Without explanation. Because this is your life. And no one else can live it for you. Maybe starting over isn't about becoming someone new, but finally letting yourself be who you were all along. You don't have to stay stuck in choices that no longer fit. You don't owe anyone a version of you that stopped growing. Starting over isn't failure. It's honesty. It's saying, "I deserve a life that reflects who I'm becoming, not who I used to be." You're not broken, you're rebuilding. And that takes more strength than pretending everything is fine. So if you need to begin again, do it. Even if people don't understand. Even if you're scared. Even if it means walking away from what once felt safe. Because starting over doesn't erase your past. It honors it by refusing to stay silent inside pain. Let today be the first page of your next chapter. Let it be the moment you chose yourself again. Not because you failed, but because you're ready to rise. You're allowed to start again. And this time, you won't just survive, you'll become.